Thank you so much. It is an incredible honor to be here on this wonderful afternoon, and I extend my greetings to Governor Hassan, to President Hewitt, Chancellor Leach, Chairwoman Diamantis, members of the Board of Trustees, the wonderful Barbara Scully, and to all of you, friends and family of the more than 1,100 graduates here today. It's a wonderful afternoon. Now to all of you graduates, that's my charge. I get to speak to you. Your education here at Keene State College has intended to prepare you for life, reflecting the college's motto, enter to learn, go forth to serve. Today marks that transition for you. And while you have attained this milestone in your education, I suspect you have also learned that your education never ends. When I think about lifelong learners, I do like to think about my grandmother, Eleanor Roosevelt, who never stopped learning. As you may know if you watched the Ken Burns series on PBS this fall, produced right here in Keene, she only had 2 years of formal education. But she looked at her life and every opportunity that was presented to her as an opportunity to learn something, and then to act on what she learned. She was curious. She was kind. She was a listener. In fact, that is probably my clearest memory of her as a grandmother, is how she listened. Rather than listening for her opportunity to tell me things, I felt her listening intently to what I had to say. That intense listening was both charming and challenging. Yikes. I had to think something. I had to have something to say. I had to know what I thought. And at that point in my life, the good nuns who were my teachers weren't terribly interested in what I had to say. But she was different. She was interested in what others had to say, even a small child. And she taught me that by that intentional listening, I could change my thinking, be challenged and developed, and therefore more useful. I think lots of impressive people have this attitude toward learning. I was at a conference a while ago, and it was one of those things where, it's a large audience and you're supposed to turn to your neighbor and introduce yourself, and so I did, and I asked the gentleman sitting next to me what he did, and he told me that he had emigrated to America from Rwanda in 2002. And that now he teaches human rights law at the University of Ohio Law School. When I identified myself as someone who worked for Goodwill Industries, are you all familiar with Goodwill Industries? Yeah, I see some heads nodding. Well, when I identified myself, he grew kind of quiet. But then he looked at me and he said, when I was a refugee, I went to Goodwill and they clothed me. They helped me look like I belonged. Every kind of person was there, he said, rich and poor. We were there together. Now, he said, I am a professor and I donate clothes to Goodwill. But sometimes I just go there and stand among all the people there, just to feel the unity of it. Goodwill is so important, he said. He told me about his learning so that I could learn. How powerful and how instructive. And through his story, I learned so much about what Goodwill's founder, Edgar Helms, intended Goodwill to be. My new friend's experience reflects what Edgar Helms had dreamed would happen as he put the structure in place that fostered his vision for helping people. I want to tell you the story of Goodwill's founding so that you can see what I mean. So picture the late 1800s. Edgar Helms was a Methodist minister serving in the settlement houses of South Boston. And he saw, as we now say, new Americans. He saw that they were lacking in basic essentials: food, clothing, housing, dignity. No one wanted to hire them, and their lives were desperate. He wanted to help. So he got in his horse and buggy, and he took some burlap bags, and he went up to Beacon Hill. And he asked the residents there, who had plenty, to give what they no longer needed or wanted, and they did. And from their generosity, he clothed the people who were in need. But he saw that that didn't solve their problem. They were still poor. They were still hungry. They were still unemployed. They needed a way to provide and care for their families. They needed jobs, and those were scarce. So he invented a business. Edgar Helms created Goodwill jobs out of those donated goods, collecting, sorting, categorizing, repairing, and selling them. In turn, those jobs gave individuals and families who had come to this nation with such high hopes, but who were barely holding on. It gave them a real chance to build their new lives and to become active participants in their community. A job, work, is the means to community engagement and to dignity. Then and now, there is dignity in work, all work, of every description. Edgar Helms described Goodwill Industries as an industrial program as well as a social service enterprise, a provider of employment, training, and rehabilitation for people of limited employability. At the core of his thinking was that nothing goes to waste. Not a shirt, not a shoe, and certainly not a person. He learned by trial and error about what worked so that he could be even more useful. Now, times have changed, but Edgar Helms' vision remains relevant. He wrote, "We have courage and are unafraid. We will press on till the curse of poverty and exploitation is banished from mankind." That alone could be the charge for today. Let's rephrase it. Have courage. Be unafraid. Press on until the curse of poverty and exploitation is banished from mankind. Edgar Helms was a preacher, a family man, a businessman, but his goal was to be a problem solver, to change the world for the better so that all human beings could have dignity. What's the goal of your learning? Be a problem solver. Now, while our goodwill, which is your goodwill, Goodwill of Northern New England, is one of 164 other autonomous and independent goodwills spread across North America, each one serving communities in the way that is most appropriate. Each one is a little bit different, but we learn from each other so that we can keep improving our services and delivering on our commitment to help families out of poverty through work. You too will keep learning long after you put away your cap and gown. While you have had the fortunate hiatus in your life to actually be in this community where all of these people have been focused on your learning, it's now your turn. As you go about building your career, being a problem solver, you can be, you must be, caring about your community, living a life that moves beyond considering what your job will do for you, but rather what your job and your life does for the community. It is your turn to go forth and serve. Make it your life. Make it the one you love. Thank you.